guys, Chris Deal here with Gold BJJ with Aaron Hernandez. Just want to go over some key concepts and some techniques from the X-Guard to help you guys out. We're just going to take a real fundamental approach and really look at it from a conceptual standpoint. Some of these concepts you can apply to many different techniques, and so we'll get started here. So really, there's a foundational goal for X-Guard that you want to think about when you're on the bottom versus the person on top. Your goals are going to be completely opposed, right? Whatever your goal on the bottom is, the person on top is going to have a goal that's in direct opposition to that, right? So X-Guard, the foundational goal here is to off-balance your opponent through leg extension and elevation, right? And so in contrast to that, the person on top, his goal is to reduce your leg extension and maintain a balance, all right? So that's the fundamental goal from the top and bottom position here. And so we're gonna look at a few key concepts that'll help you maintain control and execute on that goal, all right? The first one, we're going to look at a number of different wedges in order to control the position and maintain optimal control of the person that's on top of you. And then the other thing that we're going to look at is a principle, I call it the car jack principle. And if you think of a car jack, when you're trying to jack up a car to change a tire, the car jack has to be directly underneath of the car and pointed straight up underneath the car to lift that load. If the jack is off this way or off this way, it's not going to have optimal power to do that. And so that's a concept that's going to be applied to many different types of sweeps. When you're looking at any type of elevator type of sweeps, if you think of that concept and understand that you need to be underneath the person on top's center of gravity and lifting them vertically, it's going to give you a much better control and power in that elevation. All right, so those are some of the key concepts that we're going to look at today going through the X-Guard. All right, guys, so the first thing that we're going to look at is the mechanisms for control. And this is going to include a number of different wedges from the X-Guard position. So I'm going to get in the X-Guard position. And a lot of these can be used gi and no gi, all right? So we're just going to start in the X-Guard position. So there's a couple key mechanisms for control, some wedges that we're going to be looking at, right? So the first one is going to be the wedge on the far leg. And so what I need to do is I need to wedge my opponent's leg in between my 2 feet here. And so I'm going to be pulling both of these feet outward. And we'll notice that my knees have a very similar look to like a butterfly guard. They're butterflied out, okay? And so that's going to create a wedge. If I don't hold anything else, if my opponent tries to move his leg, this wedge helps me follow him, all right? The secondary wedge that we're going to look at is the wedge between the shoulder and the head. And so what I want to do is I want to wedge his ankle between my shoulders. So I want to shrug this shoulder up and I want to turn my head against his ankle here. And so when I wedge that, even if I'm not holding his leg, if he tries to step this leg anywhere, he has to carry my upper body weight and I can follow him, all right? Now the third mechanism for control is the kneecap. And we wanna think of the kneecap like the top of a Pringles can. And like you're trying to tear the top of the Pringles can off. And so I don't just wanna hold this, I actually wanna take my fingers around the kneecap and I want to turn it out so that his kneecap is almost pointing above my head. This is going to prevent him from being able to squat down and create a more stable base. So I want to turn that, right? So now he's already starting to feel off balance. You'll feel his foot turn slightly, all right? So those are the 3 main mechanisms for control. The final thing for controlling the person is the leg elevation and extension. And so in order to off balance my opponent, what I need to do is I need to elevate my legs and extend. And so I'm going to do this in a 45-degree angle out and up. And so by maintaining these 2 wedges and the top of the Pringles can here on the kneecap,
I'm just gonna slightly extend. Now what that does is it takes his heel off of the mat here, and now he doesn't have a strong base. So I can start entering my sweeps and just off balance him, all right? His goal on top is gonna be to try to drive back in and plant that heel down. If he does, now he has a stronger base and he's balanced, all right? So those are the mechanisms for control and extension and elevation for the X guard.
All right, guys, now the next thing I want to go over is some common mistakes and problems that people make early on using the X guard. And these are things that are going to allow your opponent to really break through your X guard and pass your guard very quickly. So we'll demonstrate those right now. So I'm going to be on the bottom here. Okay, so one of the first problems that newer students tend to make with the X guard is the direction of their knees. A lot of times what we'll see is we'll see newer students entering the X guard and their knees are close together and pointed up to the ceiling. And what this does is it actually reduces the amount of pressure on the wedge on the far leg and gives them a much better ability to push down and step out, and you don't have as much control. All right, so what we want to do is make sure that our knees are butterflied out. And what this does is it creates opposing pressure from each foot that you can pull on so that you can fully control this far leg, okay? The other part that people make a mistake of is this far section. So I'm gonna have Aaron step his foot back a little bit. So what happens is a lot of guys, they tend to get really shallow with this far arm and they're just under the elbow. And at this point, I have no control over this leg. If he decides to step up and around, he can easily beat my arm here, all right? I also am not getting under him for that carjack principle that we talked about earlier. And so what I need to do is I need to get in all the way deep so that his foot is on top of my shoulder, and then it gives me the ability to wedge in with my head and my shoulder, okay? And then a third mistake or problem that people run into is where they're placing this top hand. And so a lot of times, and it's not wrong to grab the gi pants or anything like that. However, the optimal position is to rotate his knee out. You can't do that with the gi grip. There's sweeps that you can do with the gi grip, but if you want to create optimal tension on the leg so that he's more off balance, cupping and turning the knee is going to be a better position. It's also going to be more applicable to a no-gi situation where you can cup that knee. You have no gi pants to grab any no-gi, obviously. All right, so those are some of the main things. And then the last thing that people generally make a mistake with is they do not extend and elevate their legs. And so they'll sit here in a static position. Even if they get everything else right, and they have the knee, they have the wedge, they'll sit here in a static position and allow the person on top to have a strong base. If both of his feet are planted and his heels are planted, he's got a strong base. I'm not doing my job of off balancing. And so what I need to do, I always need to remember, is a slight extension and elevation to lift his top heel off of the mats. And as long as I can do that, it's going to reduce the amount of time that he has to start to set up his escapes and passes so that he can beat the X guard. It's also going to help me set up all of my sweeps. All right. So those are some of the common mistakes that newer students will make in the X guard that we really want to avoid. All right, guys, welcome back. We're going to look at some different sweeps from the X guard. What I personally love about the X guard is it creates omnidirectional sweeping ability, meaning that when you have the position dialed in properly, you can sweep a person north, south, east, west. It gives you a lot of opportunity. And one of the principles that we want to think about, there's a lot of times when students, myself included, have gotten into a position where we're trying to force one particular sweep and we're just driving, fighting for that one particular sweep. And when the opponent knows that, or they already felt it, they're just going to resist in that direction, and it's just going to really wear you out. The great thing about X guard, and there's a number of other guards that offer this, is that if I go to sweep in one direction, the direct opposition to that is actually going to benefit me to sweep them in the other direction. And so that's one of the things that I really love about the X guard position. So we're going to go over a number of different sweeps here.
All right, guys, welcome back. So the first sweep that we're going to look at is a very basic sweep. It's the shoulder dump sweep. And so we're going to start this right from the X guard position. Remember, we've got our wedges, we've got the Pringles can kneecap pulling back, the wedge on the shoulder. Now the first thing I'm going to do, most times what the opponent is going to do is they're going to place their far hand on your legs. And so it's going to give you a perfect opportunity to grab that sleeve. And what you want to do is you want to extend your opponent, pull the sleeve, and you notice their shoulder is going to slouch down. And then we're just going to rotate towards the front and dump them right on their back, right? I'm going to maintain this sleeve grip, and I'm going to maintain the grip on the knee. And I actually want to pull the knee up so that the leg is on my shoulder. I'm also going to maintain my bottom hook on the kneecap, and I'm going to maintain my foot right next to the hip, which I'm going to show you in a second. We'll rotate. So I'm going to maintain that whole position. So when I come up, I'm fully controlled. His hips are controlled. So if he tries to start shifting his hips, it's going to be very difficult for him to move. I maintain this sleeve grip, and then I have a few options here, but a very basic option is going to be to come in, cup the head, and then just end up inside control. All right. So we're going to show that again, but from a different angle. Okay, so I'm going to maintain the X guard position. I've got my wedges. I've got the kneecap turned. I'm going to extend out, grab his sleeve, and then I'm going to rotate to dump him on his shoulder. And if you notice, I'm going to let go of this sleeve for a second. If you notice my foot positioning here, I've maintained the hook behind the knee the whole time, and I've maintained the hook on the far hip the whole time. This pins his leg and is going to lock up his hips here, and then this leg here being locked over my shoulder with pressure driving in, it's going to prohibit him from really hip escaping and getting out of this position. And then if I let go of this, he can start to extend back and then try to get out the back door. This is going to maintain him in that position, in that controlled spot. And then I'm going to bring my knee through. I can come up into a knee on belly position if I'd like to, or I can just cup the head and get full side control for the pass and sweep. So that is the shoulder dump sweep from the X guard. All right, guys, welcome back. Now what we're going to look at is the opposing sweep after the shoulder dump sweep, right? So we're going to be back in X guard, maintaining the wedges on the shoulder and the kneecap, and we get extension. And this is the one that you're going to do when the person blocks the shoulder dump sweep. So the person grabs here. I'm going to reach out, grab the sleeve, like I'm going to start setting up the shoulder dump sweep. Now he knows it's coming, so he's going to take his hand, block my grip, and he's going to pull that out and posture up to break the grip. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my lower leg, I'm going to maintain the foot behind the leg, but I'm just going to drop my foot to his heel. And then what we're going to do is we're going to elevate and sweep him backwards. All right, so we're going to do this in a little bit faster speed. So he's going to grab my thing there. I'm going to grab his sleeve, pull it. He's going to break in posture. I drop, sweep. I maintain my foot position. So I keep my foot behind the ankle, and I keep my foot here for a second at the hip. All right. Then what I'm gonna do is I need to avoid the mistake of sitting up into a triangle. So I can't come up arm and head in. What I need to do is go double under. So I already have underhook on this leg. So I'm gonna maintain this knee. I'm going to take the foot off of the hip as I simultaneously come up and go underhook. I'm gonna come to my knees, grab the gable grip, and then I'm gonna pull him up onto my legs here. And then we can work our passes from here. All right, so we'll go again, a little bit of a different angle. So I'm going to start out in the X position, cupping the knee. I've got my wedges. I grab the sleeve. He breaks the grip and postures. I hook the heel, and I need to elevate slightly with this top leg. So I'm going to elevate and pull the heel out towards the opposite position. Maintain that leg position for a brief moment as I'm coming to set up the underhook. Come to my knees, get the gable grip. I want to be tight and low around his waist. I don't want to be up around the knees because then he can shift out and drop the knees through. I need to be low, and I want to pinch my elbows on his hips. This is going to give me much better control of his hips and give me the ability to drag him up onto my thighs. Once I have him up on my thighs, his hips are now elevated, and it's going to really prevent him from being able to escape this position. And then I can work my passes from here. So that there is the alternate sweep when the opponent tries to defend the shoulder dump sweep. All right, guys, so now we're going to look at one of our north-south sweeps. We've already looked at the east-west sweeps. And so this one is a very common sweep. It's called the stand-up sweep from X-Guard. And so we're going to maintain the X-Guard position, same wedges, same kneecap position, wedging on the ankle here. This one, we're going to be sweeping the person south towards our feet. And so with this one, we're going to extend and elevate and get the opponent to base their hands on the mat just a little bit forward of them, okay? And one thing I forgot to mention in a couple of the other videos, but if you'll notice, I'm always directly under my opponent, thinking back to that carjack principle, right? And this is especially important for this type of sweep. If I am out this way for any reason, I'm not going to have power to elevate. If he steps forward a bit and gets me leaning this way, I'm not going to have optimal power. And so anytime he makes adjustments, I need to shift my hips to get directly underneath him, all right? So what we're going to do from here is we're going to elevate and extend with a slight lean forward. He's now posted. From here, I got to maintain this whole connection. I'm going to take my bottom leg. I'm going to place the foot on the kneecap, come up to my elbow, and I'm also going to withdraw my top leg, and I'm going to plant it here. From here, I'm not going to kick him out to straighten my leg. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shift my hip back. This is going to create a better posture for me when I stand up. I'm then going to come up to my hand, and I'm going to keep my head raised. So I'm going to post here, lift my hips, step back, maintaining my head posture up, and I'm going to circle around this way and come down for the pass. Okay, so again, I've got my wedges here and here. I've also got the kneecap cupped. And so from here, I'm going to extend and elevate, slightly leaning forward so that I can come up onto my elbow, place my foot in his kneecap. And again, I'm not going to extend him out. If I extend him out, I can still get the sweep, but a lot of times you'll end up in a scramble from the sweep. So it's better to post your foot, bring your hip back, and then come up to your hand. And then from here, you're gonna elevate your hip, step up, maintaining head to the sky, and you're gonna come up. and you're either going to rotate this way and then come through for the pass and get side control. Or there's another alternate situation that can happen, which we'll go over next. All right, guys, now here's the alternate scenario that can occur when you do the stand-up sweep, right? You do everything exactly the same. You get the wedges, you get the kneecap, you extend, come up to your elbow, foot on the kneecap, post your far foot, shift your hips back, and then you're gonna come up to your hand and then stand up in base. Now this time, when I do this, my opponent is going to try to turn his knee down and run, at which point I'm gonna gable grip behind the knee. Now I have his foot wedged on my shoulder and I've got the gable grip and I'm gonna drag him down. And he's either gonna fall flat like that or he might be in a more turtle-like position, at which point I have a lot of control here. Then I can come up to the hip and then start to work my way to attack his back. Os. So that's the alternate ending for the stand-up sweep. All right, guys. Now another thing that can happen when you go to set up the stand-up sweep, your opponent, when they're in X guard, they're gonna want to maintain their base. Remember, we talked about in the beginning, their goal is to maintain their base through preventing leg extension and elevation. So one of the ways that that will occur when you're working the X guard sweeps is when you go to extend and set up the stand-up sweep, or even just go to extend to off balance them, they'll post their foot and then immediately drive back into you, trying to maintain that base and get back to a better, stronger base position. So I'll demonstrate that real quick before we actually go to the sweep setup from there. So I'll extend, he's gonna drive back in and maintain that base, all right? And sometimes he'll either just drive in that way with his foot far away, or sometimes he'll even step in, right? And this is what we're looking for this particular sweep. So I'm gonna go ahead and extend out like I'm setting up for the stand-up sweep. He's gonna step back in, all right? I'm immediately going to grab his heel. From here, I'm going to extend and elevate my hips into him while maintaining control of this heel and pulling it towards my butt. And that's gonna sweep him. From here, I actually wanna come up with the momentum of the sweep and remove this inside foot to come up to my knee. And I wanna maintain the ankle position and maintain the knee position with the wedge here. If this is loose, he can then start to bring this leg around, get it inside, work to re-guard. However, if I maintain control on his ankle and I'm pulling it against my shin, then it's gonna give me an optimal position to drive in and start to set up the pass where I can then gain head control, keep his leg trapped with my foot, so that way he can't get half guard when I'm passing, and then I can step back, drive my knee in, and remove my foot from his knee. Demonstrate that again from a different angle. So I'm going to extend. He's going to step back in. I cup the heel, elevate, and come up. I maintain this grip here. Keep this grip on this knee, and I drive in, hug the head. And ideally, I want to get as deep as I can and drive the shoulder into his chin. That should always be your goal here, is to create pressure on his chin and his neck with your shoulder. And then I'm going to I can either do a long step past my foot, or I can do a knee slice right next to my foot and come through. And this will end up in a side control position. You'll get your sweep points, you'll get your pass points, and hopefully be winning your match. Now the next thing that we're gonna look at is a very simple back attack from here. All right, so we're gonna maintain the same X guard position, Remember, foot up at the hip, foot down behind the knee, creating that wedge. I've got the wedge on the shoulder and the head. I've got the kneecap or the Pringles top that I'm pulling. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to extend. And the purpose of this, again, is to make this leg light, right? From there, I'm going to Kimura grip my own hand. And so I'm going to come around the leg and I'm going to Kimura grip my wrist here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a wax on motion, right? Like Mr. Miyagi. I'm going to wax on, pull the leg over the head, and I'm going to rotate this hand from here to here and either cup the pants, or if I'm in no-gi, I'll just cup the leg. At which point I'm going to switch this hand to the belt, and then I'm going to shift my hips and bring my ankles behind my opponent's knees. Then from here, I'm going to pull his hips down on me, and I'm going to lift and extend my legs for the crab ride position to bring him down into the back take. So I lift and extend, place him down. From here, we always want to maintain optimal control when going to the back take. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to pick which side we go to. Doesn't matter which side you go to. I typically prefer to fall to this side if I'm doing it from that position of X guard, which is my right side. So if I'm going to fall to the right side, I'm going to make sure that I get the right leg hook first. All right. And then I'm also going to immediately switch from the belt grip to coming over to the seat belt. And I prefer the straight jacket position, grabbing the opponent's hand here. So simultaneously, I'm going to come up, take this foot, put the hook in, come around the neck, grab the hand here, and I'm going to immediately try to come in for the rear naked, and I'm going to go rear post mount. If you can get the hooks in for the points, you can do that as well. I personally prefer the rear post mount from a control standpoint. So we're going to rotate this way to show this position as well. All right, so again, we're going to start in the X guard position. We're going to elevate to make his leg light here. We're going to Kimura grip our own hand. We're going to wax on, cup the leg, reach up, grab the belt, shift the hips and place my ankles behind his knee, and then pull him down onto my legs. I can hold his weight with my legs here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to elevate and extend my legs to sit him down. My hand from the leg is in an optimal position to come right to his hand and grab the hand. I'm also going to get this hook, bring it in, and immediately come to the neck for the rear naked choke. One small detail that I'll mention is when you go through this position and you do it at full speed, which I'll show you in a second, it's kind of like if you jump out of an airplane and you have long hair, your hair is going to float up, right? Same thing with this position. When I drop him down, his head is naturally going to lift up because all of a sudden his weight is coming down. And what that's going to do is that's going to expose his neck. So if I time it properly, when he's hitting the ground and I'm coming in, I'm set up for the choke and I can avoid a long battle here and just get the submission. So that's my ideal goal from this position. And then maintaining this grip here, I want to bring my chin over my hand and my ear to his ear to control. And then I'm going to squeeze and rotate to the right, kind of like I'm wringing out a towel that's soaking wet, and get the tap. So I'm going to show that from that same angle at full speed so you can see that neck elevation from the drop. And so that is the back take with the choke from the X guard position.
All right, guys, so the next thing I want to show is an actual submission from X-Guard. X-Guard's not exactly known for people submitting from that position, but surprisingly, there's actually a lot of submissions that you can enter. A lot of them are a lot more advanced and are going to take a little bit more work to get to. However, there's a really easy armbar that you can get from the X-Guard position, which I'm going to demonstrate here now.
All right, so again, we always need to make sure that we're in the optimal X-Guard position. Hips directly underneath, carjack principle. Wedge on the far leg here. Wedge on the shoulder and the head. Cupping the knee. And I want to get some extension and elevation. The opponent is mainly going to be worried about beating this leg. If they can beat this leg by pushing it down, then they can step back and pass. So that's usually where your opponent's hand is going to end up, is on that knee. And it's a lot easier for me to reach to my knee than if he's keeping his hand up on that far foot. It's very difficult for me to reach there. So it's actually the perfect placement for me to start these attacks. All right, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to extend. He's going to grab there. I immediately just reach to the sleeve with my far hand. I'm going to pull that sleeve and bring it to my other hand while keeping my arm around the leg. I don't want to come inside, but I want to stay outside and then go 2-on-1, okay? From the 2-on-1 position, once I'm comfortable with the grip from this hand, I can release with this hand. You already see his posture is broken, but it's not broken enough to get an armbar, right? If I try to go for the armbar now, he's got a lot of space to pull out, and it's not going to be optimal. So what I want to do is break his posture further. So I'm going to reach in, and I'm going to pull on the closest collar to myself. I want to go deep, right? So like right next to his jugular, and I want to pull him down further. Now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knee, my top knee that is sticking out behind his butt, and I want to bring it into his chest, and I want to wedge it in. So right now, my knee is being wedged in while I'm pulling down on his neck, and I've got his leg wrapped. From here, all I need to do is take my front leg out, throw it over his head, and extend. And many times what will happen is the guy might fall over as well, which you can still maintain this armbar position from. Switch there, and if you keep this leg, he can't rotate or spin to get out, and you can get the tap. I'm going to show this from the other angle so you can see what I'm doing with my knee here to bring that out and get that wedged in. All right, so again, maintain all the wedges. I extend, grab his sleeve, pull it to my chest, pass it to the other hand. Once I'm comfortable there, I can let go, reach in, break his posture further. Now watch this knee. I'm going to slowly insert it right into his chest. And I want it lined up right underneath of where his armpit is. From there, I pull the other leg out, get it over, I chop down, and I can either tap him from here, or I keep all these grips, dump him. I keep this tight, right? I want to drive my heel to my butt. I don't want to be here because then he can move his head out and possibly get out of this position. So I want to maintain this, switch the grip to the wrist. Remember, shaka, so I want thumbs up, or I can bring it across the far hip. That, guys, is a simple armbar from the X-Guard position. All right, guys, so everything we went over about X-Guard is great and all, but how do we get to X-Guard, right? If we don't get there, then we can't effectively execute on any of those things. And so there's a number of ways that you can get to X-Guard. One of the most popular ways or easiest ways to transition to X-Guard is from single X. And how do you get to single X, right? As a newbie, there's a number of different ways that you can get there. We're going to start out from a basic position. A lot of times you're going to start a match on our knees or on our butt. And so we're going to start from butterfly, okay? So from butterfly, it's a very simple transition to get to single X. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab his collar on one side, we're gonna grab his gi pants on the other side, and remember the principle, the car jack principle, right? I need to get myself underneath him as the car jack, since this is an elevator sweep, right? So the more under his center of gravity I can get, the better I can elevate. If I try to elevate him from being all the way out here, it's not gonna happen, right? So what I need to do is I'm gonna need to scoot my butt towards my heels. I need to pull him over, and what this is gonna do is it's gonna bring his center of gravity over me as I get underneath of him. And so it's gonna put me directly underneath him, all right? So I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna pull and elevate from here. I'm going to extend this far leg and come up onto the hip, all right? And from here, we're gonna rotate just so you guys can see. So he's gonna step back. So from here, I need to maintain my hips elevated. I also need to maintain my heel on his hip here. I'm also going to keep this foot back here, and I essentially want to connect my lower part of my shin with my knee and trap it here. Another thing that I do to just help myself and help support myself is I plant this elbow on the ground next to his heel, and then I take my palm and I drive it up into my thigh. It's just gonna help to support me, so I'm not using as much of my lower back and my abs to keep myself elevated. It's just additional support, all right? So this is the control position here for X guard. And then we can enter into a couple sweeps, and then we can also enter into, or I'm sorry, this is the single X, and then we can enter into X guard from this position. All right, so I'll show that again. So I'm gonna grab here, I'm gonna grab his pant legs, I'm gonna shift my butt in towards my heels, and I'm gonna elevate him over me and then kick my leg through. And notice my knee stayed in his belly button the whole time. That's supporting his weight as I'm kicking this leg through. And then I lift the hips, trap here. Now, one thing we have to be aware of for IBJJF tournaments is knee reaping. You always want to make sure your heel is going in this way. You don't want to turn your toes in. You don't want to be across the center line. If you bring your foot across his center line in an IBJJF tournament, you could get called for reaping and DQ'd, okay? I tend to like that position because there's a lot of leg attacks that you can enter there, but IBJJF, they don't really like that so much. So we're gonna maintain this hook here and keep elevated. Again, I like to wrap the elbow here and support my hip and my thigh here and just take some of the weight off, all right? Now from here, we have a few different sweeps that we can do, and we can enter into X guard, which I'll show you next. All right, guys, so now we're in the single X position, right? We've gone from the butterfly, we've gotten to the single X position, we've got our overhook here. Now we're gonna look at a sweep and a submission, as well as a stand-up pass option from here. And then we'll also look at the transition from this single X to the X guard, which is the most popular X guard entry. So we're gonna start here. We're gonna have our hips elevated. We wanna maintain control. I wanna be in a position where I could literally be relaxed here, but elevated. And if he tries to step anywhere, he's gotta carry all of my weight, and it's gonna be very tiring for him, all right? So from here, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to do what we call the 1, 2, 3 sweep, all right? So we're gonna go out, in, and then we're gonna elevate our hip higher. This foot here is gonna tap the back of his hamstring, and I'm gonna basically break his knee out towards the back to get the sweep, okay? So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, sweep, all right? I'm gonna maintain my elbow next to his heel, and then I'm going to wrap the foot, all right? Once I wrap the foot, we're gonna attack a foot lock, which I'm gonna show you from a different angle so we can see it. All right, so from here, we've got the position. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3 for the sweep. I'm gonna cup the calf, scoot my hip out just a little bit this way, not out this way, but back this way to create some space here for my hand to come through. From here, I want to maintain connection between the base of my shin and my knee. I want to be pinching. I have the foot wrapped here. In gi, I really like to grab my far lapel. The one thing that a lot of guys miss on the footlock is what we call the motorbike, right? When you ride a motorcycle, you rev the engine by rotating here. If I go just straight like this into the footlock, the flat part of my wrist is on the Achilles. So it's not going to put the ideal pressure. It's going to be spread out over a section like this wide. However, if we rev the engine and rotate, now the bone, he's already feeling the bone applied to the Achilles, all right? So that's going to dial it in just quite a bit tighter. I'm going to tuck my elbow here, and then I'm going to look up to the sky to get the tap, all right? So again, once he falls, I want to cup the calf, pull it up into my armpit, scoot my hip back a little bit. It's going to create the space to get my hand in. I'm going to grab my own collar. The higher on my collar I can grab, the better. I bring my hips back in, keep this all pinched. I rev the motorcycle. I hide the elbow, and I look up. If you're tight enough, sometimes they're going to tap like that before you even look your head up, but you want to look your head up this way, not up to the sky, above your head, towards the crown of your head. All right? So that's the sweep and foot lock from the single X position. All right, guys, now we're going to look at same sweep, but with an option to stand up and pass. And when you get that sweep, there's a few different options that you can go depending on what you prefer. So we'll work this, and this is from the single X position. So we're going to come back up into single X. We're going to hit the same sweep that we just looked at. So we go 1, 2, 3, and I hit this heel, this ankle against his hamstring to drop him down, elevate my hips, turn his knee out. All right, so 1, 2, 3. I come here. I'm on my elbow. I'm keeping his foot trapped. I don't want my elbow back here because then he's going to be able to take his foot out. So I still want to maintain control here until I can get up and get the pass. I'm going to take my top hand. I'm going to grab on his pants. If I'm in no-gi, then obviously I'll just get a C grip or V grip, whatever you call it, here. All right, I'm going to grab his gi pants here close to the ankle. All right, and I'm going to plant my inside foot here. I'm going to elevate my hips while staying on my elbow here. And then I'm going to take this foot out. I don't want to like drag it out all clumsy or anything like that. I want to slide it under because we're going to come up to our knees. Okay, so I'm going to elevate my hips, bring this through, and I come up to my toes. So I'm on my toes and my knee here. Now there's two different options that we can go to from here. I typically prefer knee cut style passes where I'm applying my pressure and weight to the person. So I'm typically going to drive in, bring my knee to the mat, hug the head, step through, or do the other knee cut through to pass. The other alternative, after we get to this position, is we grab the pants here, we do the same thing, post our foot, elevate, come up, step up and back, and then determine which way we want to go, whether we want to do a bull pass or any other type of pass, or if you prefer to disengage and get the person to stand back up and work your game from there. You've got a number of options. All right, so we'll show that one more time, a full sweep. Let's see. Okay, so again, I've got my hips elevated, everything controlled. I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna grab the pant leg, grab the far pant leg, post the foot, stay on my elbow, elevate, take this out, and I'm either gonna drive in or I'm gonna disengage and determine how I'd like to set up the next pass. So that's another sweep from single X with a foot lock and an opportunity to pass. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna show you the transition from single X into the X guard. And this is probably the most popular path to get to X guard. You'll see this very frequently in competitions. It's a very easy transition. I like it a lot, but there are multiple other entries to get to X guard as well, which we'll show you in other clips here as well. All right, so now I'm in the single X position. I've got my elbow overhooked. I've got the foot and the hips and everything controlled here. I've got my heel on his hips, my knee connected to my shin. Everything's elevated, tight. He's got to carry my weight. All right. So now if he's standing up straight like that, then this is a great opportunity for me to get that sweep that we just showed, the 1, 2, 3 sweep. A lot of times guys are going to kind of squat down a little bit and be more based and spread out their legs a little bit. This is a great opportunity to transition right into the X guard. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop this inside foot to the back of the knee, and then we're going to take this far foot and we're going to bring it around and inside. Now you'll notice that I actually have an overhook here, right? I had my elbow pinched. As soon as I bring this leg in, I just wrap for the overhook. That just maintains control. This is another position within X guard that can be very fruitful. There's other things that you can do from here, which we can show you more of that in later videos. So now from here, what we're gonna do to get to the full X guard position, we're gonna take our fingers and we're gonna cup the back of the knee and we're gonna pull the knee down to our chest. All right, now we don't have to worry about his weight being on top of us because our legs are actually gonna help offset his weight, and so it's not really gonna be bothersome. So we're gonna pull his knee down to our chest, and what's gonna happen is his toes are gonna end up on the mat, which is gonna create a little pocket in front by his shoelaces where I can fish my hand in. So I'm gonna bring his knee down, I'm gonna fish my hand in front of the shoelaces, slide all the way around, and get his foot up onto my shoulder. And now you can see we're in the traditional X guard. And then from here, we can work our sweep where we're gonna set up a stand-up sweep. We extend, come up to the elbow, post the foot on the kneecap, post the other foot here, extend our hips back out, come to the hand, stand up in base, and then step around and come up for our sweep. All right. So one more time. Show a different angle. So we're gonna go from single X. Okay, so from here, he's deciding to squat down a little bit, create a stronger base. I'm going to transition by dropping this leg and my ankle to behind his knee. From there, what I like to do sometimes as well is use this hand to just grab the leg sometimes, just to hold it in place. It's not always necessary. Sometimes it's not even close enough for you to reach, but if it's there, you can grab it. From here, I'm gonna take this top foot, drop my hips, bring it in for the X, and then wrap the overhook. Now at this point I have full control. I got my wedges. I'm gonna take my fingers, cup the back of his knee, drive his knee to my chest, and you'll see this little pocket here that opens up. So I can then fish my fingers through. I wanna drive all the way. Remember, the common mistake we don't wanna do is we don't wanna be shallow here. So I wanna go all the way and swim it all the way up so that it brings his heel to my shoulder. And then I create my wedge, cup the knee, and then we're going to do our sit-up sweep. So extend, come up to the elbow, come up here to our hand, keep our head posted up. Our head is going to be up as well, and we're going to stand up in base, step past, and then we can pass the guard. All right. So that is
our transition from single X into the X guard, and then followed up by the stand-up sweep. Again, you can link that to any of those other sweeps that we showed you from the X guard position.